Morning, everybody. Rev.Dave Roach again here on this second day. This fourth day of February, Sunday morning. It is icing and storming profusely outside, so we have canceled service here. But I still wanted to put our YouTube sermon up today for everybody who obviously won't be making it to service this morning. I had said in the previous videos we were going to teach the Bible one principle at a time, and that is going to remain the same this morning. As I was going to share with the church this morning, a story that's very familiar to anybody who's a Christian, out of the book of Matthew, chapter 27, the early portions of it. The exact verses escape my memory right off the top of my head, but it's in the early portion of Matthew 27. You're going to find the story of Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, one of Jesus's inner circle, the 12, the apostles. He was in the clique, if you will. And the principle that I wanted to mention in regards to Judas is the one principle of betrayal. Betrayal is a very ugly, ugly thing, especially amongst people who are your friends, as close friends, or family. That is a very bitter pill for a man, and I say man as in man or woman, to swallow when you are betrayed. Betrayed. It means, what does the word even mean? It means that you have entrusted them with something very important to you, and then they have either done something illicit with what you entrusted them with, or they have squandered it, what have you. They've betrayed you. You trusted them, and they stabbed you, so to speak, in the back. Now, that is a very difficult thing for us as Christians to deal with, especially when it's someone closest to you. The fact of the business is that it would not bother you as bad if someone were to betray you, if that person was not close to you. See, people that are outside of your circle, it is not as difficult for you to swallow their behavior being of ill repute, so to speak. In other words, if someone outside your circle hurts you, you can get over that really quick, because it's almost expected, because you haven't put any stock or any investment emotionally or physically or spiritually into that person's life. Thereby, when they hurt you, you win some, you lose some. But when that person is intimately involved with you, thereby drives the knife a lot deeper. How could you ask the questions? How could they do this to me? I never would have thought. Well, if you simply understand that all things, the Bible says, are common unto man, it means all men, all women. Doesn't matter whether the person is your first cousin or your brother, your sister, your daddy. It doesn't matter. The right set of circumstances will cause people, even the closest of us, amongst us, to do things that you would not have thought was in their character, thereby causing the betrayal. Now, what was Judas's vice? He was the keeper of the purse, if you will. His vice was money. Now, you may have been betrayed over money before, or relationships, or whatever. The nature of the betrayal is irrelevant. What the cause of it was is irrelevant. It's the fact that you were betrayed in one of these particular areas. It just so happens that Judas was involved in money. And he had been offered, 30 pieces of silver. 30 pieces of silver to betray someone who was very close to him. Fact of business is, he was amongst the 12 all the time. He was one of them. He was numbered with them. And he actually had inner workings with Jesus on a daily basis. You've heard about walking with the Lord. Well, he literally walked with him in physical form. So you couldn't get any closer than Judas was to the Lord. And when he was offered 30 pieces of silver to turn Jesus over to the scribes and the Pharisees, he took it for a mere 30 pieces of silver. It was the equivalent of 17 cents a day was the equivalent of how much a laborer got paid. And it was 113 days' labor is what 30 pieces of silver amounted to. Little or nothing. And Jesus was betrayed by his friend for pennies. Literally pennies. And Judas, we know the story. He betrayed him with a kiss, and it was him that dipped his hand with him in the dish. We all know the story. Judas had pondered in his mind on whether or not to turn Jesus over a mere 30 pieces of silver. Now you think about that. That's nothing. You probably at home have had somebody betray you over pennies. What would amount to pennies? What does that? What causes that in a person? In someone that you relied on, someone that you counted as your closest friend, as blood family. Well, it's a simple answer is it's human nature. The carnal man, the natural man. And it makes it double bad if that person has a relationship with God and they betray you. Because if you're in the world, you have no spiritual compass to tell you that this betrayal is wrong. You shouldn't do that. And you just do what you want to do. But if you be a Christian and you betray a brother, a sister in the Lord, or your family, friends, whatever, and you betray that person, you had to make a conscious decision to do so. Because that light inside of you has been turned on, and now you know the difference between right and wrong, and you actually have to war against your conscience to make the decision to betray. Very, very bad situation. And so much so that after you see Judas do what he does, after he does the betrayal, that silver didn't look too good to him. You see, because he still had a conscience. Even though he betrayed the Lord, his conscience smote him. He went back to the chief priest and he said he cast down the silver. See, oftentimes what causes your betrayal doesn't look too good after Satan has finished using you. He didn't even want the money. It weighed on his conscience and said, this is blood money. At least he had a conscience to say that, but he never went to God and asked for forgiveness. Never went back to Jesus and asked him to forgive him, because he would have most certainly done it. Simon Peter, he betrayed the Lord too. Oh yes, the great Peter did just as bad, if not worse, than what Judas done and denied him 3 times before the cock crowed. Now you see Peter, he went back and asked the Lord's forgiveness and was granted. Judas didn't. And Judas, that conscience weighed on him so hard, he made a decision. He went out and killed himself. The Bible says he hung himself and his bowels gushed out. Couldn't live with the grief of it. For those of you who have been betrayed, or maybe you have betrayed somebody, if there's any God in you at all, that conscience is going to smite you. And it's going to weigh heavy on you like a ton of bricks. The only way to get that weight off of you is to go to the Lord. Ask forgiveness. Ask forgiveness for what you've done. And then go to that person whom you have betrayed and say, please forgive me. And if they have a mind of God in them, they will forgive you. That's the only way to deal with betrayal, is to right the wrong. Every wrong must be righted. Judas could have asked forgiveness, repented, truly godly repented. Instead, his conscience ate him up. Now, if you have betrayed someone in your life, and you have God in you, that conscience is going to smite you until such time as you make it right with God and you make it right with that person. Now you say, well, preacher, I've been betrayed. What then? How do I give forgiveness to these people who have betrayed me and hurt me so bad? You simply have to. For your own sake. Because if you hold that bitterness, you hold that animus in your heart, it's going to it'll eat away at you just as bad as your conscience does until you let it go. You don't want anybody in this life having power over you. And harboring unforgiveness gives that person power over your life. It's just as simple as turning it over to God, forgiving him, and moving on with your life. That's how we deal with betrayal, brothers and sisters. Till the next time, God keep you and bless you. Love you in the Lord.